So we're talking about your intuitive senses, that which you are born with, right? So you already have them on board. It's part of a system that is part of your physical body. And your physical body here is your intuitive instrument. So just like a guitar or another instrument that somebody would be able to use in a certain way, your body is your intuitive instrument. It is wired to receive a vibration. And it spends a part of its day sifting through all the different kinds of vibrations that you are bombarded with. So some of it is meant for you, some of it isn't meant for you, some of it is relevant to you, and lots of it isn't. So you can just imagine all this energy going past you all day long, and your body is able to pick up and receive that which it believes is in your highest and best good, right? So your body gets it first, and then your mind gets to figure it out. So it goes body, brain, mind figures it out, and then you get to decide whether or not you're going to take action on it. The beauty of intuition and the way that it works best, actually the only way that it works, is if you believe it. When you get an intuitive hit, you trust it, and then you take action on that which was illuminated for you in the intuitive hit. So it's really it's a trio that creates the magic of intuition. You trust it. In other words, well, first you believe it. You have to believe that you're intuitive. If you don't believe you're intuitive, forget it. Stop the tape right here and go back to what you were doing. So you have to believe that you're intuitive and understand that it's on board your body. You have it. Then you trust it. You trust the intuitive hit. You don't need additional confirmation. You don't need synchronicities. I mean, when you're first starting out, yeah, you kind of look for that stuff. But after a while, you're like, wait a second, that's an intuitive hit. That's information I can trust. And that's information that I can act on. And it's when those three things come together and you begin to act on your intuition that the magic happens. Right? The right things come for you. Life becomes easier. You're able to gather information in ways that you aren't able to gather it with your straight physical five senses. So you're engaged with your intuitive senses. And as I was talking about on Tuesday in great detail, when I was talking about the sixth sense, we went through every one of the intuitive senses, what they are, how you can experience them. So I'm not going to repeat that conversation. You can go back to the sixth sense video and hear my explanation about that in detail. What I wanted to talk about tonight about your intuitive senses is that oftentimes people wait for their intuitive senses to alert them that they've got some information, that you've got some information, and to then be able to figure it out and to use it. That's how most people do it. It's on a very subconscious level. They're walking to their car and they feel like they just figured out a solution to a problem. They came up with an idea that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to come up with. They have a sensation or a feeling that, a friend or a relative is in need of a conversation, or maybe in need of some help or guidance, or maybe that they're going to call. They're gardening and they have a sensation that, the job that they were thinking about getting isn't really going to fit the lifestyle that they want. These are all real practical applications of the information that's coming. So, but the common denominator is that they aren't seeking the information. It's that you are waiting for it to come to you like a magic bullet, right? So this is how most people are engaged with their intuitive senses, is they just sort of wait for it to come like a lightning bolt that strikes them. And maybe they get the information and maybe they miss it. But there's another way to work with your intuitive senses, and that is in a regular practice where you are engaged with your intuitive senses, seeking information. And everyone's practice can be a little bit different. Some people really prefer to work with their intuition in a state of meditation, because you're able to separate out the thinking mind from the essence of who you are, and you're more easily able to hear that inner voice, that of your natural intuition, in a state of meditative state, you know. And it doesn't necessarily mean a quiet room. When you're really good at meditating, you can separate out everything else that's going on around you, and quiet. We never shut it off, but we quiet the thinking mind so that we can hear our inner voice, or go into stillness. I mean, I've seen people meditate in the middle of Manhattan, you know, boop, boop, ding, ding, you know, everything going around, but they're able to get there. So we're talking about not necessarily a quiet room, but, you know, a quiet mind. And then you can more easily be able to hear your intuition and be able to work with it. So when I'm talking about working with it consciously, it's where you are seeking information and you are utilizing or engaging your many intuitive senses to be able to gather that information, right? So you can do this with, as I said, in pure meditation and going in a meditative state, or you can get out your tools, and you can use the variety of tools that are available to you to work with. Now, last night I was here and I was working with oracle cards, and in every case, it was resonating with the person that I was reading for. And of course, we're not in the same room, but I'm able to connect, you know, and to their energy, and then be guided by the tool to select that guidance, which is the best for them in that moment, right? And it obviously had to do with something that they had an intention of seeking guidance for, because the intuitive information is dependent on the intention. You know, so what is your intention? To solve a problem, to gather guidance, to get additional information, to get a read on something, to get a detail, to have a yes or no question answered, to be open up to something new, you know, that you didn't think about before, right? So that's the intention, you know. So when you're open up to that intention, then you'll be able to get what it is that you are seeking in a variety of different ways. So tools, you know, working meditation is one way, working with tools. So I was working with oracle cards last night. You can also work with pendulums and do dowsing. So dowsing, when you're dowsing for information, it's an extension of your energetic body, and you can begin dowsing. So you know, the thing with dowsing, when you're doing intuitive dowsing, is that you have to attune yourself and your energy to your pendulum, or your dowsing rod or rods, or your stones that you're throwing, or, you know, whatever it is that you're using, whatever is the tool, you have to attune. And a lot of people don't take the time to attune to their tools. And they might even grab somebody else's tool. Oh, let me look at this. That's a great deck of oracle cards. Let me do a reading. You're not attuned to that deck. That deck is attuned to the person who bought it and uses it regularly. In fact, it's now contaminated with your energy, and it probably won't give an accurate reading. So you have to have a clean practice. You have to clean your tools energetically, you know, and there's a variety of ways to do that. So there's other ways that you can work, obviously, and that is, the big one is your personal language of signs and symbols that becomes your personal intuitive language. So that when you're operating out here in the real world and you're seeing synchronicities and you're seeing confirmations of information that you've been wondering or thinking about, or a hit that you got, you're able to see the signs. So the most common one is repetitive numbers. So that's the most common one that people experience. Mathematics is the language of the universe. It's also the language of communicating energy. It's usually the very first way that you start to communicate with the universe, with spirit guides, with angels, you know, with other energy forms, is through numbers. So it isn't unusual that your higher self, that of your intuition, would also start looking at patterns, and they would start grabbing onto numbers. Another one is sound, you know, musical notes. Sound. Did you ever listen to a piece of music and you don't quite understand why, but you might find yourself sobbing, or you might feel, chicken skin, or what I call truth bumps, and you're listening to music. Oftentimes that is the sound. The musical notes is a form of communication, and it also can be used as confirmation. So when you hear a particular lyric, or you hear a particular kind of music, and you have these sensations running through your body, uh, you know, the emotion that is tied to it, the memory that's tied to it, the thought of the thinking mind and what it's working on, it can also serve as your higher self using that as a way to be able to guide you. Yes, this feels good. No, this feels terrible. No, we don't want to do that. So you start making those connections, and it's only over time. It's only over time that you get to understand what your personal language of signs and symbols is, that is just for you. Just like your tools are just for you and they're attuned just to you. And then they work beautifully when you are using them. So you think about that when you're working with your intuitive senses. What works best for you? Yes, you can walk around and wait and see if that was an intuitive hit when you got it and guess your head off to try to figure out what that might mean. Or you can start to record it and begin to look for the patterns and start to utilize the language of intuition in the version of signs and symbols, whatever that might be, and then start to really work with it. Say, well, what is working for me? Is it repetitive numbers sometimes or all the time? Am I noticing that it's synchronicity? In other words, I get an intuitive hit and I'm not quite getting it, and I'm getting it again through synchronicity. And synchronicity is when it's something that's similar, that will lead you back to it. And confirmation is you're getting it again. Right? So you see a repetitive number, or you have a sensation and you're not quite believing it, and your intuition is trying to get your attention, so it gives it to you again. And so you'll see the number again, or you'll get the sensation again, or you'll get it in a new way that leads exactly to the same place that you are sitting on the fence about. Synchronicity is a little bit different, where it's synced to what it is that you're seeking, but it isn't exact. So it wouldn't be a confirmation. In fact, it's usually brand new, different information that's leading you to the same place. So those are ways that you can work with it. And I consciously, rather than obviously everybody is subconsciously using their intuition, because your body is your intuitive instrument. So you're going to be able to receive vibrations, and if you're paying attention to them, and you understand what they mean, then you can act on them. Most people, they think they got something, they're not sure what it is, they don't act on it, and therefore the intuition is absolutely useless. It's absolutely useless. They're intuitive and they're not using it because they don't know what they're doing. And they don't know how to pay attention and trust the information, right? So then when you take it a step further and you start doing a conscious practice, you say, okay, I'm looking for information on this subject. Maybe I want to get a new job. Maybe I want to move house. Maybe I want to have more money. Maybe I want to feel more abundant in my life that doesn't have anything to do with money. Maybe I want to change up my situation and reinvent myself. Maybe there's something missing. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I'm trying to find the best way forward. I've got multiple options. All of these are life situations that your intuition can help guide you towards. And you can work it in a very conscious way, where you actually sit down, just like your intuition's your best friend. It is your inner guide, and you have a conversation, and you work with it. And then you're able to gather that information, right? So you gather all the information. Now you have to be very careful here, because what a lot of people do, especially even when they come to me for a reading or for intuitive coaching, there's two different things. Sometimes they're really seeking confirmation for what it is that they already want. And then they wonder why it doesn't show up in the reading. And it doesn't show up in the reading because that's not the highest and best place for you to be, go, do, think, see, feel, be, right? So in other words, there's something better, and you're not able to grasp what that is with your five senses. And for some reason, you're not trusting your sixth sense. So you go to a practitioner or a coach like me, and then we are able to go in there and get that information for you, and then you don't believe it or you don't trust it because it wasn't what you already had preconceived as the best way for you. That's the big stuckedness, where you're not open to receiving information that's different than what your thinking mind has already conjured up for you or has preconceived for you as the best way. So, and oftentimes this will happen where your intuition can lead you to something better than your thinking mind would have ever been able to think up for yourself when you are trusting it and acting on it. Acting on it. Believe, trust, act.